Hello and welcome. I'm Marc and this is the Ultimate Guitar Show. We've got another great show for you today. In the All About Technique section, I'm going to teach you guys how to do slides. And then for Riff of the Week, I'm going to show you a riff that uses slides, so it'll make it really practical for you. Our special guest is Dave Starr from the band Brill. They've got a new album out called Airless Alarm, and he's going to tear it up for you. So sit back and enjoy the Ultimate Guitar Show. It starts now. What I just did there was a slide, and that's what we're going to do on All About Technique. What a slide is, it's when you take one note and literally slide your finger across the string to the next note and it changes pitch. It's a real smooth way of playing. Let me give you another example. I might start by taking my first finger on the 5th fret and sliding up to the 6th fret. And when I slide, I typically don't strike the next note that I slid to. For example, if I go to 5 to 6, I'm only going to hit the 5. If we call up slide number 1, this first exercise, this will help you to work on this. We're going to start by using our first finger on the 5th fret of the 3rd string and slide up to the 6th fret. Now the important thing to remember when you're doing your slides is that you keep your finger pressing down on the string. If you lift your finger up to go over, the note will stop. So if you leave it down, it'll go pretty smooth. Now on the slide, you're also going to notice I didn't put any fingers down. Right now we're going to use our first finger, but the reason I did that is the same reason on the other techniques, where I always have that rule of trying to use as many different fingers or many frets, different frets, that type of thing. We want to really use the variables that we talked about on the guitar, the different fret widths, different frets, different strings, things of that nature. So in this case, we're going to use our first finger, but once you learn the exercise, I want you to try it with all your fingers. The first exercise, 5 slide to 6, we're going to hit 5, press our finger down hard and slide up to the 6th fret. And that's known as a half step. When we go 1 fret either direction, that's known as a half step interval. So I'm going to slide from 5 up a half step to 6. And the second exercise we have on slide 1 is going to be 5 up to 7. That's known as a full step, also known as a whole step. So 2 frets is a full step or a whole step. I'll hit 5 and slide up to 7. Now the way this slide is written, you can see on the tablature there, is there's a little line between each of the 2 notes, 5, and then there's a line going up to 7, or up to 6 as the case may be, with a little SL period over the top of the line. That SL period represents slide as well as the line. Now some tablature may not have the SL above it, some does, some doesn't, it's just a preference thing. But whenever you see a line connecting 2 notes, that means that it's going to be a slide. And what you'll notice is if we're going down the slide, the line's going to go down the other way. It's going to start high and go down. So if we look at the second part of slide 2 here, we have our first finger, 7th fret, 3rd string, sliding down to the 6th fret. So we'll do a half step down now. And notice the line is going the other direction. And the last half of that is going to be 7 down to 5, or 7 sliding down a whole step, also known as a full step. So slide 1 in its entirety looks like this. So you get your half step slide up, your full step slide up, your half step slide down, and your full step slide down. So that's all the slide 1. What I've done in slide 2, let's go ahead and call that up. I made the slides a little bit more intricate, and I put an upslide to a downslide connected. What I mean by that is we're going to start 5th fret, 3rd string, sliding up to 5, and without hitting the string, slide back down to 5. Sounds like this. One more time. And keep remembering, it's very important that you leave your finger pressed down really hard. If you pick it up at all, the string stops vibrating. If we look at the second part of slide 2, I wanted to give you something a little more challenging. I think what makes the slides hard is not these short little slides, but whenever you do an extended distance across the fingerboard, In this case, we're going to try to slide from 5 up to 12 and then back down to 7. So it sounds like this. 5, up to 12, down to 7, all in the same picking motion. Now, when you do these big slides, what you want to do is you want your eyes always to be one note ahead of where you're starting. For example, if I'm going to hit the 5th fret, I'm actually looking at 12. That way my finger will go right to where my eyes are looking, and then once I get to 12, I'm looking at 7. Because if I try to have my eyes go, watch this, if I try to watch the notes as I'm sliding and going back down, it's very challenging to hit everything. You'll overshoot things or undershoot them. So what I'm doing is I'm always looking one note ahead, and that way you can go right to the notes you're trying to hit. So this last exercise, 5 slide up to 12, down to 7. And a good way to practice that would be to do what I just did. Do it repetitive, do it a bunch of times in a row. But then on top of that, try using different fingers. I might have started with my first finger, but now I'm going to try using my second finger. Then third, fourth. And if you can get all of your fingers to be equally as comfortable in their slides, then you'll be doing a good job. Notice also when you're sliding, you're going to put a little more tension on your fingers, or a little more, you're going to wear them out a little bit more. Basically, you're going to get calluses, and they're going to be a little bit sore. So if you play this too much, you do these slides too much, and you notice your fingers getting really sore, take a break and move on to something else. But I think you're going to find the slides a really useful part of your playing. And in Riff of the Week, in just a minute, I'm going to show you a little riff that you can practice to do this. But lastly, what I would tell you about our slides is that you really want to try to make up your own exercises also. Try different intervals, meaning from, 2nd fret to the 7th fret, continue up to the 12, up to 14, down to 10. Move it all over the fingerboard, and don't stay on one string either. Try doing slides on the 6th string, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. You can kind of move all over the fingerboard. Make sense? Go for it. All right, slides. For Riff of the Week, I made a little piece for you guys to practice that I think will be really helpful in getting the slides down. There's some bigger slides here and some multiple note slides, so it'll take a little bit of practice to get used to, but I think you'll really enjoy playing it. All right, slide number 1. We're going to start by hitting the 6th string open, putting our 2nd finger on the 12th fret of the 1st string, sliding up to 15, down to 10, and back up to 12. It sounds like this. 12, up to 15, down to 10, back up to 12. One more time. Hit the 6th string open and let it ring. The next section, we're going to start by hitting the 4th string open, letting it ring. And when we do that, we want to stop the 6th string from ringing. The way I do that is at the side of my palm. When I go to hit the 4th string, my palm kind of touches that 6th string. So if it's ringing, stops it and hits the 4th string. So that way we don't have two bass notes ringing simultaneously. So the 4th string open. Now I'm going to go with my 2nd finger, 14th fret on the 1st string, and we're going to slide up to 15, back to 14, and then down to 10. Sounds like this. With the bass note. One more time. Oops. Then we stop the 4th string from ringing, and we're going to hit the 5th string open. That's going to become our new bass note. We're going to call it slide number 2 for this, and what's going to happen is we hit the 5th string open. We're going to take our 2nd finger now to the 10th fret, where we already are. We're going to hit that, slide up to 12, back down to 10, down to 7, all in one motion. Sounds like this. Lastly, we're going to hit the 5th fret on the 1st string, slide up to 7, back down to 5. Then we're going to hit the 3rd fret, first string, slide up to 5, back down to 3, pull off to 0. So we're going to throw in one little pull off at the very end to get us to that open first string. Sounds like this. When you pull off, just like we did in the previous lesson, you just want to pull down just a little bit, not drastically where you pull the string off the guitar, but enough where it kind of snaps the string and gets the string to ring again. One more time, the whole thing, the whole second slide. At which point you're going to want to loop that and start the whole thing back over. So let's play the whole thing at a slow speed and see what it sounds like, starting with the first part. After a while, you're going to want to try to speed that up and get it, where it sounds a little bit more, what's the word? I don't know, a little more legato, a little more smooth. And something else you can do, we talked about distortion on the last show. If you add a little bit of distortion, which I'm going to do right now, you'll notice you can get a little more sustain out of the note, so the slides become a little bit louder, a little bit easier to hear. But with that comes a little bit more noise as well, so you have to have a little more control over everything you're hitting. It sounds like this. Once you get comfortable with that, you can try playing again on different strings. You can make up your own melodies. Something I like to do a lot is just to hit that 6th string open, the E, and just play different notes like I was kind of doing at the beginning of this piece. I was just kind of improvising. I use a lot of slides on my songs because of the legato nature of it, the real smooth kind of melodic nature of it. In fact, that last riff I was playing was off of a song called Above the Clouds, which is off my Transformation 7 album. And the riff is really just this slide thing where it slides up. You can just see how you kind of slide up the neck, and it's just a real smooth thing. So you might want to check that out. Other than that, get to practicing your slides, get them all down, and we'll see you back here next time. Today we're going to do something a little special on the show. I want to teach you one of my imperative fundamentals. And what that is something that you absolutely need to know on the guitar. I'm going to be teaching you guys notes on the neck and how to find any note on the neck at any time. Basically, all you really need to know is the musical alphabet, which is A through G back to A. So the notes that are on the guitar are A, B, C, D, E, F, G back to A. So that's our musical alphabet. We need to know what a half step is, which we talked about in the earlier segment. A half step is just one fret either direction. If I'm on the 5th fret and I move up a half step, it'd be that way, up to the 6th fret. If I was on the 5th fret, move down a half step, it'd be lower to the 4th fret. A full step, also known as a whole step, would be 2 frets. So if I was on the 5th fret and I moved up a whole step, that would be 5 up to 7. If I was on the 5th fret and moved down a whole step, it'd be 5 down to 3. And that's anywhere on the guitar. I could be on the 12th fret and move up a whole step, and it would be up to 14. Okay, so if we know our half steps and our whole steps, then the next thing we need to know are sharps and flats. And what sharps and flats are basically opposites. A sharp is when we take a note and go up higher 1/2 step. So that means if I'm on 5 and I sharp that note, well then I'll be up at the 6th fret. If I'm on 5 and I flat it, I'd be down to the 4th. If I flat that, I'd be down to the 3rd. And if I sharp that, I'd be back up to the 4th. So the sharps and flats are just up and down 1/2 step intervals, either side of whatever note you're on. So if we know our sharps and our flats, we know half steps, whole steps, we know the musical alphabet, we pretty much know what we need to know with the exception of the string names. I'm assuming you already know those because we do our tune-up section at the beginning of the show. But what you have to know is all 6 strings, E, A, D, G, B, and E. So memorize that. And what a lot of my private students do is they make an acronym for those string names. One of my favorite ones was Eventually All Dedicated Guitarists Buy Equipment. Eventually All Dedicated Musicians Buy Equipment. And that gives you all the notes for the strings. Now the way the notes work is you have to think about 0 fret. Okay, 0 fret meaning that if I hit a string open, it's like I'm putting my finger behind the nut here, and that's like I'm fretting that note out. Well, we'll start on the A string, and the way that it works is this. Every note from one note to the next is always a whole step. A to B is a whole step. We have 2 exceptions though, B to C, which is a half step, and E to F, which is a half step. So what happens is every note's a whole step except for when you land on B and you're going up to C, then it's only a half step or 1 fret. When you're on E going up to F, it's a half step, 1 fret. Everything else, whole steps. So if we start on A, and a good way to do this is put your finger behind the nut here and say, okay, A, now go up a whole step or 2 frets, 1, 2, that would be your B. Go up a half step because that's one of the exceptions, B to C. There's C, then whole steps, C to D, whole step, D to E. That's our other exception. E to F will be a half step. Then F, whole step up to G. G, whole step back up to A. Remember we said A through G and then goes back to A. There's no H note or J note or elemental P note. Okay, so you'll want to just go A to G and back down. So again, if we start on the 5th string open, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. I'm always doing whole steps between every note except B to C and E to F. I can't emphasize that enough. If we look at the 6th string, we do the same thing. Well, we start on E, and that's an exception right out of the gate. So E to F is only going to be 1 fret. So E, F, G, A, B, half step C, whole step D, and back up to E at the 12th fret. Now notice that every time we get to the 12th fret, we're going to be on the same note we started with, and that's because the octaves run out there. It starts back over. Okay, so this is open A. This is the first octave of A. That's where the notes begin over. There's 12 notes on the guitar. Okay, so we have that down. The only other thing we have to address then is the enharmonics, as they're known as, are called accidentals, the sharps and flat notes. And the way that works is that, say for example, I'm on my 3rd fret, which is A, B, C. Well, from C to D is a whole step, right? So there's a note in between there. Well, what do we call that? Well, that note would be called a C. What do I have to do to the C to get up there? I have to raise it a half step. If you raise a note a half step, what do we say that was called? It's called a sharp. So C sharp. It can also be known as D flat. Okay, those are called enharmonics. So the same note, different name, and it's going to apply to different keys. Don't worry about it, just accept it, and we'll talk about it on a future show, I'm sure. So it's C sharp, D flat. So if a note is in between 2 notes, then it's going to be the note lower sharped or the note higher flatted. Okay, let's try one more of those. Say for example, I'm on the 6th string, I'm on my A. So E, F, G, A, and I want to go to the note in between A and B. It's going to be an A sharp or a B flat. Okay, so there's your sharps and flats. So that will basically show you every note on the guitar. Now the best way to practice this, you really want to get the notes down in a hurry. I guarantee this will work if you do this for 1 month. What I want you to do is take your right hand, you throw it down on the guitar anywhere you want. Now, say I'll throw it right here. I say, okay, first thing I ask myself, what string is that? What number? It's string number 4. What open string name is that? That's my D string. Then I'll take my left hand and I'll count up to it. D, E, F, G, A, B. So it's in between A and B. It's an A sharp or a B flat. And if you do like 10 or 20 of those notes like that a day, you'll totally get the notes down on the fingerboard in no time at all. Some of the kids from Kearney High School that have been on the set with us sent in some questions for this week's show, so I want to answer those on the air. A couple of them. First off, how do you move past stage fright? And that's a great question because I'm not sure you ever really get past stage fright. But what you can do is use stage fright as a way to kind of inspire yourself to work really hard before you hit the set and make sure that you're dialed in and you're really prepared. So I think preparation is a big part of it. Secondly, experience, just making yourself do it and do it a lot. The more you can get on stage, the more comfortable it becomes over time. So if you have an opportunity to play, go do it. Today we have an incredible guest for you. Mr. Dave Starr from the band Brill is here to entertain you. So take it away, Dave.
Take me on another trip, all my money spent. She said that's alright. I might be broke, I'm not the only one to live this way. just to breathe. Whenever you're gone, now you say you wanna leave. Follow all your dreams, they're so right. I know you'll make it to the top. I wanna see you fake it. You'll find out what you need. Won't let the sun go down. Wherever you go, I'll be with you. Wherever you hide, I wanna have them dance for your lost struggle, just to breathe whenever you're gone. To run away when all your freedom is gone. Don't you run away when all you have is gone. Don't let it bring you down, 'cause everything will bring itself. Now you say you wanna leave. Follow all your dreams, that's alright. But I'm giving up. I won't let the sun go down. Wherever you go, I'll be with you. Wherever you hide, wanna have them tell. My tears feel lost whenever you're gone. Whoa, 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 wherever you're gone.
Dave, that was awesome, man. Thanks
you.
so much for being on the show.
Of course.
Dave is a longtime friend of mine. He's actually a former student, and he's gone on to form the band Brill, and they've been signed and been touring all over the country. And tell us what you've been doing lately.
We've been on tour with a band called Blue October, and the singer actually broke his leg. We were playing at a baseball stadium, and he playing baseball and broke his leg, so the tour got canceled. It's postponed till the middle of June, so I think we're leaving next week.
Okay. And where have you
for a
guys been
couple more
touring?
months.
Where was it at?
All around the country, mostly the Midwest, all the way up to New York, and it's been really fun.
What dates got canceled? Which shows?
Most of the New York stuff,
Okay.
which was a bummer because that's where we love playing. But
Well, you'll be back there soon enough.
yeah, we're going there in 2 weeks.
Cool. And you guys have a new album out? What's that called?
It's called Airless Alarm. It's in stores now. Just came out 2 months ago.
Okay, you guys have a new single out. What's the single called?
It's called Whenever You're Gone. It just got released to radio on Tuesday.
Excellent. So people should be calling up. You guys call your radio stations and request it. It's a cool song. Was that one of the songs you performed today?
Yeah, it was the first song.
What other things you want to put out there for everyone to know?
You can check our website, brillband.com.
Are you guys on MySpace?
Yeah. We were one of the first.
Is that right? How many friends do you have?
Enough.
Enough. All right.
12,000?
12,000. Wow, that's pretty good.
That's a good number.
11,999 more than I have. So that's really good. What's the MySpace webpage?
Just MySpace /Brill.
Brill. Okay, BRIL.
1L, yeah.
Cool. Well, you guys check out Brill's website at brillband.com and check out their singles and request their stuff on the radio. And hey, we'll see you back here again next time. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank
I
you, Marc.
appreciate it, dude. Good to see you.
Thanks.
You're the kind I leave behind on your empty side. It's what you take from me. You don't know it. Wish I could be myself. Wish you could try to understand what you mean to me. Used to be so close, and now you're so far away. And what we used to be guess you didn't care. You're the kind I leave behind. All you desire is what you take from me. You don't know it. I wish you could be yourself. Wish I could try to understand what you mean to me. We used to be so close, and now you're so far away. And what we used to be, I guess you didn't care.